Thank you.
My mother, who raised me and my sister, was a proud woman. She was a brown woman. She was a woman with a heavy accent. She was a woman who many times people would overlook her or not take her seriously, or because of her accent, assume things about her intelligence. Now, every time my mother proved them wrong. Every time she proved them wrong. And because of who my mother was and what she believed, what she had the ability to dream was possible and then work to make possible, the fact that my mother never asked anyone permission to tell her what was possible is why, within one generation, I stand here as a serious candidate for President of the United States. Mother, who...
Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it, and apologies for the delay. I know it's hectic trying to get here, but I do appreciate everybody showing up and showing up to elect our next president and vice president of the United States. So. My name is Eddie Antonio Taveras. I'm the Latino Coalitions Director for the Democratic National Committee. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. Just a little about myself and why I decided to show that video. I'm Eddie. I'm a Latino Dominican from New York City, raised by two wonderful Latina giants, my mother, who's a bartender, and my grandmother, who was a seamstress. I illustrate that story because my grandmother came here undocumented in the 1970s, separated from her, my mother, the eldest at the time, for 12 years. My grandmother never learned English because she was always ashamed of people poking fun of her. She was always ashamed of not being able to have the ability to do it or the time because she was trying to get us, and by default me, here today. And I illustrate that because I think that video of Vice President Harris and her mother, who became a civil rights advocate and activist, is the story of many Latinas, many Latinos who, whether you came here a couple of decades ago or a few generations ago, understand that struggle and that generational trauma that lives within us. And yet we are persistent, we are vision forward in ensuring that we persevere, and that for my story, a generation removed, I sit here helping to nominate the next woman, the next Black, and the next AAPI president in the United States. And my story is a common story within the party and within the campaign. It is a story of folks coming from different experiences and background who, many of us could have left good jobs, many of us have sacrificed time, energy, money, like you folks, to do what's right for our democracy, but more specifically to do what's right for our people. And so I say this, that our campaign, our party, is really built in the motto of moving forward, working hard, and most importantly, living life with joy, because that's what we deserve. And with that, we have a wonderful two-day program that we worked very hard, that I worked with the chair and the executive team of the Hispanic Caucus, which I'll introduce in a second, which includes speakers from the campaign, high-level speakers from the administration and Congress. It also includes panels discussion on key topics that our community cares about. And it also includes training in ways to communicate to our community and ways to mobilize our community without needing permission. And this is just a number of the eligible voters, Latino voters this year, 36.2 million. That is up by several millions from 2020, where we were at 32.3. That is to say that we were one of the youngest voting bloc demographic, but we're also one of the strongest and growing. And it's because of the work that you all do that we continue and will continue to get stronger and make our voices heard. With that, this work is not possible at the DNC, the campaign, and elsewhere without the volunteer but great sacrifices of these individuals that are here that lead the Hispanic Caucus, which essentially represents the voice of Latinos for the party and the country. So I'd like to introduce my jefa, as I call her. She calls me her son, and my fellow Caribbean chair, Iris Martinez.
I am teaching him well. I am very proud. He's done some excellent work here with us, and the best staffer ever. Sorry, one can never ask for. This is a lot of hard work, but again, you know, it's worth it because when I see the room, and I know we should have a much fuller room, I want to first and foremost apologize for all the, you know, the logistic issues this morning. It is our first day. It does happen. Secret Service, you know, continues to, you know, really dominate what's going on here. So we have to respect that, and hopefully people can be patient, and hopefully we can work all these kinks out the first day and on to the parties and all the good things that we're going to have. Primeramente, gracias. I'm so happy to be here. ¿Dónde están los hispanos demócratas? That's right. In the house. I am so proud. I am Iris Martinez. I am a former senator, the very first Latina ever in the history of Illinois to be a state senator. And the very first, right now, my current job is I am the first Hispanic clerk of the circuit courts. I run all the court system in the Cook County. So that's my real job. But my passion is this, exactly, year after year, being part of the DNC, working to make sure that we are getting the message. We have such a critical, most important election of our lifetime. And especially for us mujeres, to see the very first woman president in the White House, that is to dream for. And here we are going to make those dreams come true for all of our future generations, from our daughters to our granddaughters, to every young lady out there that ever felt hopeless. There is always hope. We always find a way, and I know that women are becoming so entrenched into the politics. We need that balance, and I'm just so very happy to be part of what's going on, the momentum that is out there, because we have such a great tickets in Harris and Walls, and I know we're going to take that ticket all the way home in November, and it starts right here with the Latinos. We are the fastest growing population. We need to get our people out to vote. We need to empower our people, because you know what? This election will be decided by the Latino vote, so let's not let anybody down. All right, are we fired up and ready to go? I am. So let me go ahead and start with our first. I'm going to bring Luis up to introduce our first guest who's going to speak. Luis Heredia, he is from Arizona, the great state of Arizona, one of my wonderful executive members.
¿Se puede?
Sí se puede.
No se oye. ¿Se puede?
Sí se puede.
My name is Luis Heredia. I'm from the great state of Arizona, from Mexican parents who immigrated to this country, and I'm here because we decide that Latinos have to continue moving the needle. It is hard to have those conversations. We all know that we are part of the families that are, you know, having those hard conversations, but more Latinos and more conversations that really make victories happen to elect Democrats that represent our folks. I have the great pleasure of introducing a person I admire for a very long time. She continues to represent us in the highest office in this country. She has a corazón that is unmeasurable, and somebody I respect and continue to admire as she moves through major decisions of our Democratic Party. She does not need any introduction, but it's my pleasure to introduce Julie Chavez Rodriguez to the stage. Woo! Please. So as you know, Julie serves as the campaign manager for the Harris for President. She has served in the highest levels of the White House and continues to be a chingona every single day.
Right.
When you're raised by an immigrant mother,
You learn what's possible with determination.
And determination is how Kamala Harris,
went from working in McDonald's,
2. Prosecutor.
State Attorney General,
U.S. Senator, as our vice president,
She fights for women's reproductive rights every day.
and she beat the pharmaceutical companies to lower costs for insulin and prescriptions.
because she knows
When we fight, we win.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
cuando eres criada por una madre inmigrante,
Conoces lo que es posible con determinación.
Y con determinación,
fue como Kamala Harris,
comenzó trabajando en un McDonald's,
Y llegó a ser fiscal.
fiscal general del estado,
senadora de los Estados Unidos,
Y como nuestra vicepresidenta, lucha todos los días por los derechos reproductivos de las mujeres.
y derrotó a las compañías farmacéuticas para bajar el precio de la insulina y los medicamentos.
Porque Kamala sabe que cuando luchamos, ganamos.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this morning's Hispanic Caucus gathering and for being here at the 2024 Democratic National Convention. I want to thank Eddie. I want to thank Chair Martinez. I want to thank our board of the Hispanic Caucus for their tremendous leadership over the years. You know, we have continued to grow, not just, who's in the room today, but continue to grow the kind of leadership that we have across our Democratic Party in every single role, in every single state, in our headquarters, and of course throughout the Harris Walls campaign. And so I'm so honored to be able to join you all today. And especially on the day that we are going to pay thoughtful recognition to the extremely wonderful contributions and accomplishments of our President, Joe Biden. Now, many of you all know I started this campaign as the campaign manager for the Biden-Harris campaign, and I could not be more honored to have served President Joe Biden, who is the most pro-labor president. He is the most pro-Latino president that we have seen, given all that he and the vice president have accomplished. And now that we have Vice President Harris and Governor Walz as the head of our ticket, I am extremely proud to continue in that role and to make sure that we are mobilizing our Latino vote like never before. Now, we know Latino voters are critical to our pathway to victory. In states like Arizona, Nevada, and Pennsylvania, they make up the margin of victory in those states. In so many of our other battleground states, they are core to our coalition to win. So we know that we cannot take anything for granted this campaign. We know that we cannot leave anything on the table when it comes to engaging and turning out our Latino voters. And I wanted to start with the ad determination, the determinación, that we put out to really make sure that we are introducing Vice President Kamala Harris to our community. As the Senator of California, as the Attorney General of California, she is no stranger to working with Latinos, to rolling up her sleeves, to knowing our issues, and to fighting hard for our families. And so we're going to continue to make sure that the country knows really what the Vice President has done and the incredible leadership that she has shown throughout her entire career. And most recently, just with the Biden-Harris administration, she has helped to create 5 million jobs for Latinos alone. It's incredible. She has helped to spawn the lowest unemployment rate, the fastest growth in Latino small businesses that we have seen in a generation, lowering the cost of prescription drugs for Latino seniors, and so much more. And they've already started, her and Governor Walz have already started to lay out our plans for the future, because we know that while it's important we talk about how historic this presidency has been, we know that we need to continue to focus on the future, especially when the other guy wants to take us backwards.
So Vice President Harris and Governor Walz have hit the campaign trail talking about what they're going to do to lower the cost of rent and housing, to continue to lower the cost of healthcare and prescription drugs, to continue to invest in our Hispanic serving institutions and public education, and so much more, because as the Vice President continues to remind us, when we fight, we win. That's right. That's right. And we're going to continue to bring this message to our Latino voters. We're going to do it in English, we're going to do it in Spanish, we're going to do it in Spanglish for all of our young, bicultural, bilingual voters. And we're going to continue to leverage key moments throughout the next several weeks as we zero in on Election Day. We know we have Hispanic Heritage Month coming up. We know that there are some major concerts with talent. There's, the Canelo fight in Las Vegas. All these different things are cultural moments that we can leverage to reach Latino voters, in addition to, of course, doing the fundamental organizing that we know it takes to win, and that's recruiting volunteers, knocking on doors, sending text messages, phone banking people, making sure that as ballots drop, our Latino voters know what's at stake, know how to vote, have all of the information that they need to make sure that their vote is counted. So rest assured, y'all, we are going to do this together. We are going to show the power of our Latino community and the Latino vote, and we are going to win in November. Sí se puede.
Are we not fired? Are we not ready to fire and ready to get this show started? We have to. When we talk about Julie Chavez Rodriguez and where we've come from, I want to just have a little, we're going to go back in history just for 1 second. I want to share something unbelievable about somebody who's in the audience today. She was the first woman to convene the Hispanic Caucus back in 1972. She was the former state senator of Colorado, the first Latino, and former vice chair of the DNC in 1974. None other than our very own Polly Baca. Where's Polly Baca at? There is a woman that started this Hispanic Caucus. I had to acknowledge her because we are here because of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Gracias de todo corazón. And to bring up the next speaker, I'm going to bring up my other partner in crime. She is phenomenal. She's the best. She is Artie. It's all about the labor for Artie. Artie Blanco.
Órale, bueno. We got a program to meet. So, the next speaker I'm going to bring up, he brings a deep passion for equity and excellence in education. Shaped by his bicultural upbringing and the experiences of his Puerto Rican grandparents who moved to the mainland in U.S. in the 1960s. His contributions to the policies that have been happening around education, to educate our children, have been phenomenal. I'd like to introduce the Honorable Dr. Miguel A. Cordona. Got it.
Thank you. ¿Cómo están? ¡Despierta! Awesome. Really happy to be here with you all. Muchísimas gracias. Ya Julie me dio el permiso de hablar en español, en Spanglish. Yo le tiro en Spanglish. Really happy to be here with all of you. Me siento orgulloso de poder estar aquí con ustedes. Y aunque tengo título y profesión, lo que sea, yo me considero un jíbaro improvisando todavía. As was mentioned in the introduction, look, I'm the proud grandson of farmers in Puerto Rico. I always say my Boricua. Los abuelos míos dejaron la isla. They left the paradise of Puerto Rico for the projects of Connecticut to give me an opportunity and my father an opportunity to have things. And as the grandson of farmers, words to live by are often said in the home. And there was one saying that I remember hearing a lot. It says, para tener buena cosecha, hay que saber sembrar. Para tener buena cosecha, hay que saber sembrar. In order to have a good harvest, you must know how to plant seeds. And planting seeds for future generations is what the Harris Walls ticket is all about. Planting seeds. Planting seeds for a brighter future for our children with access to education, healthcare, and accessible housing. Planting seeds that will harvest freedom of choice, a strong democracy, a harvest of America that accepts all of us just the way we are, because after all, mi gente, this is America. Yo siempre digo, y cuando me presentaron en diciembre de 2020, yo dije, I'm as American as apple pie and rice and beans. ¿Verdad que sí? Or frijoles, or habichuela negra, depending on whatever, right? But I'm as American as apple pie and rice and beans because I recognize, like you recognize, that being bilingual, being bicultural is our superpower, and it's something that makes our country stronger. Vice President Harris and Governor Walz are fighting for a future that every American can see themselves in, where our middle class is strong and our freedoms are sound. As Latinos, sabemos que nuestra identidad latina is our greatest strength. But while our families may have come from all over, they all came seeking a better life. Our stories and the stories of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are very similar. Middle-class families working to get ahead and make their communities better. A country where an English learner from an economically disadvantaged community can grow up to advise the President of the United States. Sin embargo, the contrast on the other side cannot be greater. They want to destroy public institutions. Just look at Project 2025. Que revolú, como decimos en Puerto Rico, que revolú. They have a playbook for destroying our country. Our foundation in this country is under attack. Como dice la canción de Maluma, ¿verdad? Te quiero, te quiero, te quiero, pero muy lejos. Que se vayan. So instead of focusing on Project 2025, let's get loud about our project for 2024, and that is to elect Kamala Harris as President of the United States. Como le dije ahorita, yo me considero un jibarito todavía, aunque nací por acá. And growing up, I used to listen to a song that was called Coño, Despierta Boricua by Andrés Jiménez. It was a battle cry song for Boricuas to wake up. Today, my message for Latinos who have so much to lose if we sit this one out and so much to gain if we get in the game is, Coño, despierta Latino, despierta Latino. Let's get to work, and together we're going to send Kamala and Tim to the White House. And we're going to elect Democrats up and down the ballot, and we're going to prove that America's best days are still in front of us. Pa'lante, mi gente. Gracias.
¡Qué orgullo, boricua! ¡Qué orgullo! And the momentum keeps rising. It just keeps on rising in this room. There's Latinos in this room. ¿Dónde están los hispanos? Let me continue with the program. Just give me one quick second. There we go. A little bit technical issues going on. Okay, Luis, go ahead. Your show.
Buenos dias. I have the pleasure to introduce the highest ranking Latino in the U.S. Congress, Congressman Pete Aguilar. Congressman Aguilar represents the 33rd District In California, he was elected in 2022 and continues to serve as the highest ranking member of the House and soon to be the caucus chair of the majority of the Democrats in Congress. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luis. Thank you, thank you. Thank you to the Hispanic Caucus. Good to see you, Arturo. Always got to give shout out to my California leaders over here, leaders in the movement. Thank you so much, Luis. I'm so honored to speak before the Hispanic Caucus. This is such an amazing group. You are doing the work on the ground every day, and it does not go unnoticed. So I'm thankful to be with you as we kick off our week ahead. All of us come from different communities, but we have this shared vision. We have similar stories. We represent similar communities. And the Hispanic Caucus in Congress is so thrilled to see all of you and to learn from all of you each and every day, because we're united behind the same values: faith, family, hard work. That's what defines us. That's who we are. That's built into our DNA. And those values will be on display here this week as we nominate Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to be the President and Vice President of the United States. The Harris-Walz ticket is going to ensure that the Latino dream remains. And there's plenty of work to do. And as the Vice President likes to tell us, this isn't just about, not just getting by, but getting ahead. That could not be more relevant to the Latino community, where home ownership needs to be in reach for everyone, where we crack down on price gougers who jack up prices for folks in our communities, where lower costs of prescription drugs for seniors and lower health insurance premiums matter to our communities, where every community should have clean air and clean water and a better quality of life for our kids, where we don't have to choose between a secure and orderly border and creating new pathways for citizenship. We can and will do both. Together we can make this vision a reality and show our power at the ballot box. We will elect the first Black and South Asian woman to be in the White House, and we will elect Hakeem Jeffries to be the Speaker of the House. Don't worry, you're going to send folks to Congress who do that on the first ballot, January 3rd. We're not going to wait 15 ballots like those crazy guys. That's not who we are. I had the privilege of nominating Hakeem Jeffries a dozen times for Speaker. Nobody wants to get this done more than me, trust me. And it is truly an honor to lead a House Democratic Caucus that reflects our country. You're going to hear from Maxwell Frost, who is an amazing, amazing future leader, a leader of the Hispanic Caucus and someone who we all look up to as well. You're going to hear in the panel from Nanette Barragan, our fearless leader of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. So pleased to be able to be here with her. We need to celebrate this work together, but we need to remember a couple things. We lost our House majority 5 seats. 5 seats is the deficit of why Hakeem Jeffries didn't become Speaker a year and a half ago. And collectively, the voters in those 5 districts, 6,675 votes. That's all it was, spread across those 5 districts that kept us from being in the majority. And in 2020, we beat Donald Trump by 44,000 votes in 3 states. That's the margin. That's the margin that we're talking about. So every door you knock, every conversation you have, every postcard you send is meaningful, and it matters, because you're going to be the ones who help deliver for our communities. You're going to elect leaders who look out for our communities, and most importantly, you're going to elect leaders that look like our communities, so every room we walk into looks like our country. We are not done until we make that happen. Don't let anybody tell you that this can't happen, because together we're going to get this done. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. See you.
All right, all right. We're going to keep the program moving. Oh, no.
Can you honor her?
Yes, of course. Wait, is she here? Hilda Solis? Where's my sister? Where's my sister? Hilda, ¿dónde estás? ¡Órale! ¿Qué pasó, chingona? ¡Woo! Now, Hilda, I remember when she was in Congress, and she was the Secretary of the Department of Labor. Ya sabemos, labor's in power, so wanted to say hello and say thank you for being here. Oh, you want to say hi? Say hello.
Bienvenidos, our Latinos in the house. Union in the house. Young people in the house. Seniors in the house. Are we in the house for Harris and Walz? And guess what? A lot of people are trying to get here. The traffic is bad, and there's a lot of our gente here. The message is come out, get ready, because when we go back home to our states, we got to win those battleground states. And those of you that are blue states like me in California, you're going to phone bank, you're going to help get people elected, the down ballot, all of that. But most importantly, our people have to be at the table. The only way we're going to be at the table is we help to elect more people who speak our language, understand us, care about our values. No? Si se puede. I see Artie Rodriguez here and the farm workers. Woo! Thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias. Si se puede.
All right, give it up for Hilda Solis. All right. ¿Qué de qué? Okay, we got it.
We're going to go into the panels, but first I want to do a quick shout out to Kenneth Romero from the NHCSL, the National Hispanic Caucus of State Legislators. I know they're all in the room today here. My former stomping ground. Thank you for being here with us.
All right, bueno. All right, and welcome everybody. All right, Juanel. Now the next thing is to have a real quick panel discussion on the economy. We know our gente are hurting out there. We already know that unfortunately, in order to survive, you have to have more than one job. And in our union space, we know one job should be enough. One job should be enough to be able to survive in this economy. But that's why we have to continue with this ticket and elect Harris and Walz. So I'm going to bring up a group of people, and we're going to get a real quick conversation going around the economy. And so primero, I'm going to bring up Antonieta Cades. She is the Deputy Executive Director for Climate Power en Acción. Órale, Antonieta. She's going to moderate the conversation. Next, I saw esta mujer de California, this congresswoman, this chair of the Hispanic Caucus, speaking on the news, and I thought, that is our leader. She's not here? Nanette, okay, she's not here, pero ni modo. I mean, you gotta look at who Nanette Barragan is. She's really amazing. But next, I'm gonna go ahead and bring up my labor sister. Mira nomás, I'm wearing purple, Rocio Sainz, International Secretary Treasurer of the Service Employees International Union. Another chingona there. So is Frankie Miranda here? No. I'm going next. Jaime? No? Antonieta's gonna take the mic and I'm gonna step away. Thank you, bye.
Hola, buenos días. ¿Estamos listos para hablar de economía o no? Estoy súper emocionada de estar acá hoy y de presentar a nuestros panelistas. Ya presentamos a Rocío. We introduced Rocío. So let me introduce Brent Wilkes, Senior Vice President for Institutional Development for the Hispanic Federation. Bienvenido, Brent. Let me also introduce Jaime Di Paulo, President and CEO of the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Bienvenido, Jaime. I can't start talking about the economy without recognizing the important moment we are living right now. Just last week, a historic legislation celebrated its second anniversary, the Inflation Reduction Act. I like to call it La Ley Climática.
According to Climate Power latest Clean Energy Boom report, this law has helped create over 334,000 jobs and sparked 372 billion in new investments across 48 states and Puerto Rico. But what's even more inspiring is how this boom is reaching into communities that need it the most, in low-income areas. 290 new clean energy projects have been announced, bringing 140 billion in investment and creating 134,000 jobs across 38 states. Es maravilloso la diferencia que esta legislación está creando para nuestra comunidad, comunidades que necesitan estos trabajos con mejores sueldos y mejores oportunidades. Así que, without further ado, let's start talking about jobs. Rocío, in the last 4 years, worker rights have progressed under democratic leadership, securing higher wages and better working conditions. How can Democrats further support labor rights in this economic climate?
So, buenos días. Primero que nada quiero agradecer la oportunidad de estar aquí con este panel y por el DNC de tenernos juntos. Y nada más quiero decir una cosa para reducir lo que tú dijiste. Cuando luchamos, ganamos. Cuando luchamos,
ganamos.
When we fight, we win. So I want to just start by saying that this is a really, really important part of the work of labor. And especially when workers come together, when they join together, when they are bargaining collectively together, they can raise wages. They can not only raise wages by changing, having a voice on the job, and being able to just spend more time with their families. So what it means that we need more unions. And we need to make sure that we write the rules so more workers are able to join unions and are able to just raise wages and have better working conditions for themselves. But I want to just say, when we raise wages for workers, we know that it's an incredible investment in our communities. So it is very, very important that we write the rules so more workers are able to join unions. Right now, 7 out of 10 workers, they favor unions, but only 1 out of 10 are in unions. And this is when workers are trying to join unions, they often are met with hate, hostility, and harassment. And we need to change that. Workers want to be in a union so they can change their lives of themselves, their co-workers, and in turn bring better working conditions with that. Let me just give you an example. Fast food workers in California, 500,000 fast food workers, majority women, Latina, and women of color. They won an incredible fast food sector council. This was historic, where they are meeting with the employers and government to raise working conditions. And this year, they went to $20 an hour. We need to see that in every other place, in every other industry. So when workers come together, when they form unions, when they are able to win, and we need to see that more.
Muchísimas gracias, Rocío. Jaime, hablemos de pequeños negocios. What are the biggest challenges small businesses face in creating jobs, and how can democratic leadership address these challenges?
Well, thank you for that question. Thank you so much for being here. I guess welcome to Chi-Town. If you order a hot dog, you're not going to see any ketchup, so don't feel bad about it, because if you order ketchup, they might just throw it at you. So welcome to Chicago. The Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce represents about 147,000 Latino business enterprises in the state of Illinois, by 80% of them in the city of Chicago. So there's over 4 million small businesses in the United States. And according to the data, we're supposed to be the 5th largest GDP in the world. If Latinos in this country were a country, we would be the 5th largest economy in the world. So, ain't that amazing? So what's happening? What's happening is we are building jobs, we're creating opportunities. I think what's going on with the renewable energy right now, we have an opportunity to actually Latinos lead the way on nitrogen energy. We got left out of internet, we've been left out of all these new initiatives, but now we have an opportunity to lead the way in energy, in nitrogen energy. So that's the future. We're creating jobs, opportunities.
Muchas gracias, Jaime. Brent, hablemos de inflación, hablemos de costos. Inflation expectations for the 3-year outlook have dropped to an historic low, 2.7%. But despite these overall trends, many Latino families are still experiencing significant financial strain due to rising costs. Can you discuss a little bit how the Hispanic Federation is helping communities navigate these economic challenges and what role government policy plays in reducing inflation impact?
Well, thank you. And it's, I'm sorry, I'm not Frankie Miranda, but he is. Can you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm Brent Wilkes. I'm not Frankie Miranda. Frankie is our president and is at a press conference actually right now talking about the Latino vote. No surprise to the audience here, but the Harris-Walz campaign is surging with the Latino vote, up an additional 4 points just this morning, so it's a pretty exciting time. I think we also all know that Latino and African American communities were most impacted by the pandemic and by the impact of inflation. And many of them have reported to us that they are under financial duress as a result of that. And so we're working hard to try to make sure that those families can get back on track. That's really the biggest challenge. A lot of families are living paycheck to paycheck. They did not have savings in order to be able to weather a downturn in the economy. And as a result, they're feeling pain. The good news is, though, that inflation has come way down, as you pointed out, and the job market is very strong, and that as a result, we start to see the light at the end of the tunnel for many of these families. Now, what we have been focused on at Hispanic Federation is providing the resources to help people tide over. We're doing rental subsidies, for example. We're providing food and clothing and other items that families need to be able to get through the challenges that they're facing. We're doing a lot of financial literacy classes, and we're talking about making sure that families are using their monies wisely and helping to save for the future. And then we want to just also say that we really appreciate the Biden-Harris administration's focus on addressing price gouging because too many companies, too many industries took advantage of the pandemic to raise their prices, blaming it all on inflation, when in fact they were going beyond what their underlying costs were. And so by having the administration really focusing in on these industries and telling them to scale back, get back to a realistic pricing, I think it's a huge help and lift for a lot of families, and we certainly appreciate Vice President Harris's commitment to moving forward and continuing to do that. And then we also really think that the tax credit that the Vice President has proposed to help families afford a new home will help bring that the impact of the high cost of housing down, in addition to her commitment to help build an additional 3 million housing units. We all know that the only way to really lower housing prices is to increase the supply of housing. And her initiatives are going to help us build that, so we're really excited about her campaign.
Muchísimas gracias, Brent. Sabemos que el alza de precios de las grandes corporaciones es uno de los problemas que estamos viendo y que está básicamente aumentando la inflación para todos nosotros. Nosotros en Climate Power trabajamos mucho haciendo evidente lo que hacen las compañías de gas y petróleo, por ejemplo. Cuando más lo necesitamos, estar cubiertos en términos de energía, es cuando suben los precios, cuando hay eventos de clima extremo, por ejemplo, se corta la luz o necesitamos más combustible para tener funcionando todo lo que necesitamos, es cuando más suben los precios. Por lo tanto, hacer responsables a estas corporaciones es una prioridad. Y me están diciendo que we have limited time. Okay, one more question. Rocío, what are the most effective strategies you have seen for addressing rising housing costs, and how can the SEIU contribute to making housing more affordable for working families?
So this is a big issue for working families and obviously for Latinos. Our strategy is to win more worker power. So we want to have to rewrite the rules so more workers are able to join the unions, because when they join unions, they're able to raise wages that in turn will keep up with the high or the rising cost of housing and groceries and everything else. So I think we need to just make sure that we write the rules that also allows to hold corporations accountable. I want just to say that, Kamala Harris has shown that she is ready to rewrite the rules to help workers to join unions, but also to hold big business accountable to this. I just want to, on the housing issue too, it's just incredible just to see her plan, and that she wants to have a tax code that encourages builders to build homes for American families, no mansions for their friends. So this is really important. And we know that homeless is not the issue, it's the lack of housing that is the problem. And we all know that we deserve to be in a safe and equitable place. And we know that Kamala Harris cares about this too.
Muchas gracias, Rocío. Jaime, Brent, do you want to also address housing for Latinos from a business perspective, Jaime?
Yeah, and labor is our friends in Illinois. Illinois is known by, unions. The future of this country is fair wages. So we make sure every contract we get it has fair wage. Every contract that goes out from the state of Illinois outside, it needs to have a goal of at least 25% minority-owned building, and everybody has to be unionized. So we're doing the right thing here in Illinois, and I wish in every state in this country would do that, because the more money you put on people's pockets, the more money they're going to have money to spend on small businesses or get an affordable house or build your own home. So that's the way we see the thing in the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Housing is a big boom here in Illinois right now. They're coming up, the prices of housing, there's a lack of housing right now, but there's a lot of companies being creative and being modules with the help of many companies coming from abroad, and with the unions, we're building this incredible housing right now here in Illinois. It's only going to boom the economy.
Gracias, Jaime. Brent?
Yeah, I think Latino families need as much help as possible, starting with, of course, the job opportunities and making sure that they're getting great union jobs at a good salary. We're doing a lot of skilling so that we're helping people get the new and better job opportunities that earn more money to help afford a home. But in addition to that, they need help with the down payment assistance and with programs. We've provided over $8 million to our network to help them provide housing assistance, housing counseling services, really an economic mobility strategy to help folks. We've also helped people who are still paying rent with utility payments and rent mortgage payments. So that's really an important thing. And then in Puerto Rico, we've done a lot of work to rebuild housing. Puerto Rico was dramatically impacted by housing because of the hurricanes and the damage that was caused by Maria. And so we've been working to try to rebuild those housing units. Finally, one thing I think that isn't necessarily on the plank, but we have to remember that at the same time that we've run into this housing crunch, there's been a lot of businesses that have come up that are actually using residential units for vacation pitches, and so that's caused less of a supply in housing. We certainly hope that the Harris administration really works hard to help us ensure that we increase that supply and make sure that there's 3 million additional housing units that get built on board, because that is a challenge that we have to address.
Muchas gracias, Brent. Bueno, quiero dar las gracias a... Perdón. No, yo no creo que tengamos espacio para preguntas, perdón.
Yes.
In terms of, there's no need to go into the specific detail, but how does the Jones Act play into getting supplies into the island? I know
I'm sure that Brent can address that question one-on-one with you. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for listening to this panel. Muchísimas gracias. Se puede. Adelante. Que disfruten su día.
¿Dónde se fue Luis? Wait. Espérate, ¿dónde se fue? I don't know, it's not in here.
Mother.
I'm just gonna leave it there. Let's just put that chair.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure, when we talk about the leadership that the DNC has, and this young gentleman has been relentless, going from state to state, working 24/7. I don't know how he does it. He's campaigned across the whole United States. He is my hero, and is our chairman, Jamie Harrison. The greatest chairman ever. Jamie.
See, y'all trying to make a black man blush. Folks, are you fired up?
Yes.
Are you fired up? Listen, first and foremost, let's give flowers to our Madam Chair, who is amazing. Chair Iris Martinez. I want to thank you all so much for being here today, and I want to officially welcome you to the 2024 Democratic National Convention in Chicago, Illinois. I hope you're already having a wonderful, wonderful time. And folks, let me just tell you, tonight, the first night of our convention is going to be a remarkable one. We are going to hear from some of the stalwarts of our party. We're going to hear from my former boss, Jim Clyburn. We're going to hear from Hillary Clinton. But most importantly, we are going to hear from the most transformational president of my lifetime, Joe Biden. Y'all, we are going to give him his flowers and to thank him for his 50 years of selfless leadership. Because this is a president who has always seen us, he's always heard us, and by God, he has always fought for us. And so we need to let him know that we will always be riding with Biden. And this week, in addition, we are going to be celebrating the team of hope and joy. The team of hope and joy. I don't know if you all have seen or felt the energy and the excitement in our Democratic Party. I have not felt this type of energy in a very, very long time. Because on the other side, we have a man who has built a whole mantra based and party based on fear and hatred and division. But on our side, we have two people who have taken on the mantle of hope and joy. And what we know as a party is they are the party of fear, but we are the party of hope. And hope always wins. It always wins. And so I think it is going to be my honor to introduce our next guest. And I don't know if our next guest is here yet. He is. As I've been saying this, folks, we are Team Hope and Joy. And on Team Hope and Joy, we have an MVP, our Madam Vice President, Kamala Harris, and we also have a coach in Tim Walz. I want you all to give a Democratic National Convention welcome to my good friend of over 20 years, the governor of the great state of Minnesota, and our coach, Tim Walz.
Wow. Wow. Welcome to Chicago. Well, Chair Martinez, thank you. Thank you for the work. Can we give one more round of applause to somebody who is the hardest working, most passionate folks? Chair, and to Jamie Harrison, our chair. Appreciate it, Chair Harrison. I got the opportunity, our future's bright. Representative Frost was here, I know, and boy, I'll tell you what, young folks across this country are fired up because what they know is their destiny's in our hands this election cycle. Their destiny is what we're going to make for the future with them. Now, I have to tell you, you all know it, and you're seeing it. There's a little bit of energy out there in America right now. Positive energy. We were in Western Pennsylvania yesterday, folks showing up all over the place. But you want to know something about the character of the person who, yes, she is going to be the next president of the United States. Vice President Harris, we were getting off the bus, and there were massive crowds of supporters. And then there was a small group of folks who weren't. You can always tell them by their hats. You know who they are. And the first thing she said is what they need to know is I'll work just as hard for them and their families as the folks who are supporting us. That sense of decency, that sense of vision, that sense of hopefulness, and the one thing you're all feeling this is challenging work. This is hard. There's a lot at stake, but that's no different than a lot of people live their lives. It can be challenging and hard, but you can do it with a sense of optimism and what she's doing with a sense of joy, and a smile. They're on her because she laughs. My God, I'll take someone who laughs any damn day of the week. I'll take anybody. She has a joy emanating out of her. You can feel it with children. You know that they're not going to feel that. So in this campaign, we got 78 days. You know it. Folks in this room give your sweat, tears, time, talent, treasure to try and get something done. And it's all about trying to realize that truly American ideal of a more perfect union. But you know what great countries do? They acknowledge their history, the good, the bad, and the ugly, all of it. Because if you can't acknowledge where you came from, how do you know where you're going? How can you set to the place where you're going to be? And a sense of the decency amongst people, the sense of this being a beacon of hope for people, a place where if you work hard, you should be able to get ahead. You shouldn't have to go broke because you have a medical bill. You should be able to expect to make your own healthcare decisions by yourself and your doctor, not someone else. Those are all things. Those are not that difficult. And the idea for many of us, education and public schools being foundational to the chance that we go forward. I'm proud of the education I got in public schools, and I'm also proud that I paid it forward teaching those same kids in those public schools. It makes a difference. So look, not very many times in history do you get 78 days that can make such a profound impact, not just on our lives, not just on American lives, but globally. America's decency and leadership and vision and kindness and inclusiveness for this big, beautiful tapestry that makes up America, that's what we get the chance to fight for. You know what the threat is on the other side, but you know what I'm hearing on the doors? People don't want to just vote against something. They want to vote for something. They want to vote for something that's there. Well, Kamala Harris has given you something to vote for. She's given them something to envision. She's seen a future that's brighter, it's more inclusive, and it's kinder. And she said something to me. The coach in me responded to this really big. She said, strength in a leader is not beating someone down. Strength in a leader is lifting someone up when they need it. And that's all you see her do, lifting people up. So look, we've got an opportunity to put those guys in the rearview mirror. We've got an opportunity to start making this even a more inclusive country. We have an opportunity to make sure that we have all families have a shot at the middle class and a chance to thrive, but we've got to do it with the hard work. It starts here in Chicago, and we've got 78 days. And as I've been telling everybody, until then, we're just going to keep working. We'll sleep when we're dead, but not now. Not now. So, as the Vice President says, when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. Let's go.
Let's give it up for the next Vice President of the United States.
Thank you, Governor, for honoring us here in the Hispanic Caucus. Thank you so much. Sí se puede. It's not over yet. Everybody take your seats. Please do not leave yet. We still got more programming. Do not leave, please. But it only happens here in the Hispanic Caucus so we can bring the governor, our future vice president, to this caucus. I'm so proud and so happy. For the next panel, which I think is very important panel, can we please have people remain in the room? We still got some speakers coming up. We still have the room for another hour, so please do not leave. We got some great speakers lined up for the rest of the programming. It is my honor to bring to the panel, here up to the panel, people who can talk about our gun safety and the situations that we are seeing everywhere, community security. I can tell you one thing, I am also someone who lost a valuable family member to gun violence a little over a year and a half ago. And let me just say this, it hasn't been easy when a mother of 5 is shot to death while she's coming home from Bible classes with her husband. And again, we know that story and many stories like that are out there. So this is a very important topic that I really believe we need to give our utmost attention, because it is something that's going on not only here in Chicago, but across the nation. Let me bring up the moderator, Brianna. Let me make sure I have her last name here. Brianna Carmen. Carmen, just like my sister, name is Carmen. But Brianna was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, was inspired by the challenges facing her border community to manage a successful U.S. congressional race while still in college. Her efforts led her to a leadership role in the Texas' most historic Senate race in over 2 decades, engaging millions of Texan brothers online and in person. She is an activist. She's also coordinated rapid response efforts to reunite families separated by the Trump, let's not say that name, that weird person, yeah, administration, zero tolerance policy in 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, Brianna Carmen.
Playing a bit of musical chairs this morning, but great to see everyone, and I am so excited to introduce this panel and our wonderful panelists. First, I would like to welcome up Congressman Maxwell Frost from Florida. Hello, Congressman. And next, I would like to welcome up a good friend, Jose Alfaro, Executive Director from Community Justice. Hola, Jose. And we are very excited to be here discussing the important topic of gun violence and the intersectionality with the Latino community. We have some great questions, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Brianna Carmen. I'm the political director at Emerge. We work to recruit and train Democratic women to run for office. So if you want to run for office, come see me. And we have over 6,000 alumni, 1,200 of whom are currently in office, really working to get women to pass policies like gun violence reforms so that way our communities are safer. And I'll turn to my panelists and ask them to quickly introduce themselves. Congressman?
How's everybody doing? ¿Cómo está mi gente? Well, I'm Congressman Maxwell Alejandro Frost. I represent Florida's 10th Congressional District in Congress, which is Orlando, Florida. And I am, yes, who here's from Florida? Yeah. And I'm just very proud to be here with such an amazing brother here who's just literally saving lives. And thank you for your work as well and making sure we get good candidates, gun sense candidates elected to office from Congress, school board. We need to make sure we elect good people everywhere.
Hey everybody, buenos días, buenas tardes. It's still día, ¿verdad? Okay. My name is Jose Emanuel Alfaro Flore Barahona Sanchez Valladares, or Jose Alfaro for short, and I am the new Executive Director for Community Justice Action Fund. At Community Justice, we are a national organization that focuses on gun violence prevention specific to communities of color, which means that we work with and support organizations that are doing work to save lives in Black and Latino communities, as well as other BIPOC communities. Good to be here.
Thank you both for being here. And, to level set, I want to share some harrowing statistics. Latino children are 3 times more likely to die by gun violence. Latinos generally are more likely to be impacted by gun violence. And all of that being said, we as a community are really in favor of, common sense legislation. 7 in 10 Latinos are in favor of gun reform. So, with that being said, my first question is to you, Jose. As the Executive Director of Community Justice, the new Executive Director, you've been at the forefront of community safety initiatives. Can you explain the impact of gun violence in Latino communities and how grassroots organizations like Community Justice are addressing it?
Absolutely. So I first want to just share that I come to you as a former member of a street organization. And so my lived experience is very much in and around street and city gun violence. I grew up in Jamaica, Queens, New York, where my New Yorkers at. And a lot of my experiences were also seeing street organizations mobilize and organize in their communities in the 1990s. And that took a profound effect on the way that I think about this work and the way that I see community engagement and community organizing. So it has to be said that it's almost about 5,000 Latinos that die from gun violence every year. And that number has grown in the last 2 years. When I started to do this work, we were about 4,000. And then about 2 years ago, it jumped to 4,700. And most recently, the Surgeon General made an announcement that named that gun violence is the prominent killer of children and teens in Black and brown communities. And so that's a problem, right? That's a huge, huge problem. And we also have to think about a number of different other ways that Latina communities are impacted by gun violence. So we have about another 13,000 that are shot and wounded who have to live with, the impact of being wounded. That means that sometimes there are family members that aren't able to go to work because they now have to take care of their children. It means that some of the members of our communities are now paralyzed. It means that there's a long healing process, not to mention a psychological process that we have to go through in our healing journey. And so these impacts not only impact the immediate families, but they also send ripple effects across our communities. When we don't feel safe in our communities, when we can't feel safe in our communities, how are we able to navigate and live whole and healthy lives?
Thank you for sharing that, Jose, and really acknowledging that we are living in a gun violence epidemic where our communities are being impacted in a way that just is detrimental and impacts their day-to-day lives. And so I would like to ask you, Congressman Frost, with the recent passage of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act that established the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention, the piece of legislation that addresses gun violence and took us 30 years, to pass, would love to get a sense from you. Can you share your thoughts on the recent legislation and what more needs to be done at the legislative level?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the question, and I think, I think especially on gun violence, because we lose over 100 lives a day, because so many more people are wounded a day, so many people are shot a day, And so many more people survive gun violence every day and are surviving gun violence as part of their day-to-day life. We tend to sometimes in the gun violence movement not see our wins. And I think everyone should know in this room that I believe right now that the movement to end gun violence is stronger than the gun lobby, stronger than the NRA, with more power and more institutional power. I mean, just look at this. If we go a little over a decade ago, did you know that banning assault weapons was not an opinion that every Democratic member of Congress had? It's something that this movement had to fight for, and now it is expected, and it is the norm of this party, which is a good thing. Now we saw the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act pass, the first piece of gun violence legislation passed at the federal level in 30 years. 30 years. And after its passage, we see that gun violence in many of our cities and towns are going down. Is it fast enough? No, we need to have a lot more work we need to do. One life lost is more than we can stand. But we are making good progress here with this administration, and I know that Kamala Harris is going to continue that, and she's been a part of it. We talk about the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention, which is a bill that myself and Senator Chris Murphy filed. It was my first bill I ever filed. The president took that legislation and made it law through executive order, and now we have the first ever White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention.
Wow.
And it's not just an office in a building, right? Like, they are working at making sure that we speed up implementation of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Hundreds of millions of dollars going to organizations across the entire country, going towards mental health, going towards ensuring that the work that happens at Community Justice Action Fund and the organizations they work with have resources. This is one of the first times in our country's history that we have seen this type of investment in community violence intervention, which is figuring out who's most likely to be shot, who's more likely to shoot someone, intervening, and also working at healing and making sure that we do this at the community level. I'll tell you all this, if locking people up fixed gun violence, we would have no gun violence in this country because we lock up the most people in the world, okay? And so, I'm not saying we need to get rid of all these other solutions we have, but we also need to look at other things. How are we going to put resources into the hands of the community? Because this violence is starting in the community, it's going to end in the community too.
Thank you. And really talking about empowering our communities and local organizations, my next question is for you, Jose. What lessons can be learned from local community-based initiatives and interventions that can be applied at the state and federal levels to reduce gun violence and protect our communities?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely right that when we think about our communities, we have to have holistic approaches, right? When we think about gun violence as a public health issue, that allows for us to start thinking about this particular issue as a pandemic. Right? It allows us to look at the communities that are most impacted and to be able to see that our communities have been divested from. We don't have the resources that are necessary for communities. And so one of the through lines of the work that folks are doing on the ground is that they are looking at root causes of gun violence, right? Which means that they are looking at the infrastructures that cities have on whether or not they have access to quality education, whether or not they have access to quality health care, food, jobs, and places and resources for young people. But in our communities as well, we also have to think about language access, right? When we think about language access and the ability to ensure that members of our community who speak Spanish or indigenous languages from the Americas have the access that they need in order to live whole lives. The other thing is thinking about at the city level, most of the most successful organizations are built on an ecosystem. And that ecosystem is supported by hospitals, by the education system, and by other services that cities provide, along with a Office of Gun Violence Prevention at the local level and at the state level. And so when we think about, the National Office of Gun Violence Prevention under the White House, who was former executive director of Community Justice Action Fund, Greg Jackson, and we think about other cities and states that are doing similar things. When you go back home, you have to ask yourselves, do we have a city Office of Gun Violence Prevention, and do we have a state Office of Gun Violence Prevention?
Got it. And Congressman, I just shared the statistic that Latino children are 3 times more likely to die than their white counterparts because of gun violence. So, given the disproportionate impact of gun violence on young Latinos, how do you see your role in Congress in pushing for legislation that specifically addresses these disparities?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I mean, look, to solve this issue, there's so much we need to do, right? We all know, and when we think about gun violence prevention, we think of a set of laws we need to pass, right? Universal background checks, banning assault weapons, making sure that we have safe storage laws like Ethan's Law. These laws are very important. We need to get them passed because it is going to help save lives around this country. The other thing we also need to do at the same time, and you know, sometimes this is, people don't talk about this, but Jose was just talking about it, is that we have to look at community investment. It is not a coincidence that the reason that Latino kids are more likely to be shot, and the reason we have these disproportionate statistics, is these kids are also living in communities that are severely underfunded in many different ways. Most of these crimes are crimes of condition. People have been pushed to the brink and feel like they need to use the weapon to get ahead. The goal here of government should be, we want to create communities where people don't feel the need to use a gun to solve their problems in the first place. So that means healthcare. Yeah. I always tell people, if you're going to be the gun violence prevention person, you're also going to be the healthcare person, right? You're also going to be the schooling person. You're also going to be the person to make sure people have housing. You're going to be the anti-poverty person, because all these conditions bubble up. And this is the reason why we see disproportionate gun violence in black and brown communities, right? And so what we have to do is figure out, how are we intervening in that? It's going to be CVI, it's going to be health-based initiatives, it's going to be laws to prevent guns from getting in the wrong hands, and it's going to be more community investment. We need all these things at the same time to solve this issue. And so how are we going to solve this specifically for Latino communities? Putting more resources into Latino communities to help with the services that Latinos need. And I think that's really important.
Exactly. And, you know, when we think about becoming that person, it really comes down to leadership. Who are our local leaders? Who are the state leaders? Who are the federal leaders? And Vice President Kamala Harris has decades worth of experience working on this issue. We know that when she was the district attorney in San Francisco, she worked to get illegal guns off the streets. She worked to cancel out loopholes. She continued that work when she was in office as a U.S. Senator, co-sponsoring legislation on gun violence reform, and then now as Vice President, again, helping pass the bipartisan Safer Communities Act and establishing the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. With all that being said, this isn't a leading question comparing her to Trump, but Jose, in your view, how do local communities perceive the contrast between the Biden-Harris administration and those of the previous administration on gun safety?
Yeah. So, you know, the difference is stark, right? Under the previous administration, there was no prioritizing of gun safety and CVI organizations in our communities. The other piece is that, you know, she was able to really bring about, you know, the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. And this administration has signed a, you know, landmark piece of legislation that hasn't been touched in over 30 years because the gun lobby was so strong, right? And so in over 30 years, we haven't had a piece of legislation dedicated to addressing gun violence in our communities. But under this administration, we are able to, you know, now say that we have legislation that impacts our community specifically. You think about, you know, over, you know, $300 million in funds for community violence intervention programs like the ones here in Chicago, Illinois, right? There are organizations like Increase the Peace out of Back of the Yards. There's an organization called New Life Centers that's working in Little Village. These organizations are getting federal dollars to continue to do the work that they need to do, and our communities are seeing and feeling the impact because of that.
Thank you. And when we talk about continuing the work, I know there is some concern amongst this movement that with Donald Trump, as we saw in his last presidency, that he would roll back a lot of the wins that we have been able to achieve, that he is essentially bought by the NRA and does not prioritize protecting our communities. So, Congressman Frost, can you speak to the importance of electing leaders who prioritize community safety and gun control? And how do you see this shaping the 2024 election? Again, not a leading question.
Yeah, I mean, you all know what's at stake. This is a matter of life or death. You know, I said this in an interview, and a bunch of right-wing people came at me saying I was being hyperbolic. I said, if Trump is elected for 4 years, there are going to be communities of people who will not be able to survive. And I'll say it again. We're going to see it in gun violence. There's going to be, number one, the first thing Donald Trump is going to do, one of the first things he's going to do, is he's going to get rid of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. I promise you that. That's an easy one for him to just get rid of day one. He will get rid of that. Along that, what he'll also do is slow down the implementation of Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. I wouldn't even be surprised if they just halt a lot of the grant money going out, because it's up to the administration to get this stuff out. And we've seen this Congress have a great ability to hold President Trump accountable. If he has a Republican House, no, not at all. This is why all the elections matter so much. We need to elect Kamala Harris. That's not the only thing we need to do. We need to have a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate. When we do that, we will pass Stephen Horsford's bill, the Break the Cycle Act. We will get $5 billion to organizations doing this work, and Kamala Harris will sign it. Right? And that will save lives. So it's literally a matter of life or death. I don't know if there's the last question or not, if there's a couple more, but I just want to make sure I get this out too. Y'all, we have some of the most engaged people here, and Jose brought this up, but what I want everyone to do here, write this down, ready? Go home and look this up. Does your city have an Office of Gun Violence Prevention? Find that out. Does your state have an Office of Gun Violence Prevention? You can start with the city. If the answer is yes, great. Figure out how you can get involved, talk to your member of Congress, and figure out how they can bring back more money to it. They can utilize your community project funds to bring back money to these organizations. I got $1 million for the city of Orlando's headquarters of CVI. So there's ways to do that. Talk to your member of Congress. The other thing I want you to do, though, is if the answer is no, I want you to contact Jose and Community Justice Action Fund. Is Action Fund still part of it? I see it just says Community Justice.
It's RC4.
Okay. Oh, my bad. Community Justice, period. Hit up Community Justice and ask them for help and ask them for guidance on how you can advocate for one of these offices at home. This is important. There's a lot. This work is already going on in your communities, but what these offices do is they work at bringing people together and getting more resources into it. That is what really helps these organizations scale, going from a group of people who are doing good work, paying out of their own pockets to save lives, to having a real budget and a real infrastructure where they can scale it and save more lives around your community.
So you two have been dropping so much knowledge on this crowd and really just sharing the different opportunities that we as individuals can have in the gun violence reform movement. And so, Jose, my question for you, our last question for you, is could you share some successful community safety initiatives, much like what Congressman Frost just mentioned around the local Office of Gun Violence Prevention, that have reduced gun violence, and how these community safety initiatives can be replicated in other Latino communities across the country?
Absolutely. So, I have to say that our communities have been impacted by gun violence for generations, right? When you think about a city like Chicago, since the 1940s, since the migration of Mexican and Puerto Rican immigrants to the city, whether it was racism, police violence, etc., our communities have been doing this work for generations, and yet, our communities haven't been given the credit that we deserve, or these leaders haven't seen haven't been seen or addressed or acknowledged. And so I have to say that first and foremost. There are community violence intervention programs across the United States led by and operated by Latino community members, right? Folks who have seen the issues that are happening in their communities that want to put a stop to it. Right? In some of those places, you have, in Los Angeles, California, you have Homeboys Industries, or, a number of other organizations, yes. And then, New York City is a really interesting space. So violence has gone down in, a lot of cities across the United States, both because of this Office of Gun Violence Prevention and their implementation process, but also the people that are doing the work on the ground. And, places like New York City, their violence statistics have gone down. Their gun violence statistics have gone down to about 30% less. And in places like Baltimore, their gun violence statistics have gone down about 20%. And this is because, one, they are focusing on ensuring that they have a healthy ecosystem where violence intervention and interruption programs are working with local cities, local city hospitals, education systems, and other programs, but then also because they have a network of violence intervention programs that are both operating in their local community and sharing resources and sharing ideas. And so as we think about some of these successes, we have to think about what violence intervention programs there may already be in your city or in your community, and working with them to continue to build up some of those resources.
Thank you for that. And so, Congressman, we've been talking a lot about the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, how it is a landmark piece, the most recent piece that has been passed in 30 years around gun violence reform. And I think your average person or just people going about their daily lives have a hard time connecting federal legislation to the actual day-to-day impact. You mentioned a number, $300 million. People are wondering, what does that look like? Where does that money go? And so can you share a little bit more about how this law specifically has impacted Latino communities, and what further actions should Congress take to build on that?
Well, I'll give you an example of what's going on in my hometown, in my city of Orlando. We have the Orlando Office of Gun Violence Prevention, which works with several nonprofits, organizations, and community violence interrupters across our district. And they work together to figure out who's handling which blocks, this and that, and the city disperses funds to these organizations so they can do this work, so they can hire people. We're talking about work that saves lives, and a lot of times work that can be kind of dangerous, right? These folks need to get paid, right? Like, people need to get paid. People deserve health care. People deserve to say, if they want to work to end gun violence as their livelihood, they deserve to be compensated for that and have the resources they need to stay safe and do this work. And so the city has this program, and we've seen in zip codes and on the blocks that they run this program on, gun violence has gone down. Specifically, this program only really exists in our Black and brown communities. So in our Latino communities in Orlando and our predominantly Black communities in Orlando, and it works. But the city didn't just one day say, let's just start this randomly. The American Rescue Plan was passed. And with the American Rescue Plan, the administration gave a suggestion of ways you could use this money. And one of the suggestions they gave was using it for CVI and using it to help end gun violence on a local level. So because the federal government gave that money to the city of Orlando and said, look, here's a model of ways you can do this, they did it. And then when the money started running out, guess what? Through the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the federal government gave our city of Orlando $1.5 million to extend it for another year and a half, right? And lives are being saved because of it. I think it's a really good example of how federal money can go locally. And our hope is that our city will say, you know what? We want to pick up the tab on this, or we're going to pick up half the tab and try to get the federal government to the other half, because this is important. And it just shows how a lot of times federal money can help spur cities and localities to continue a program. And so it's so important to contact your member of Congress and say, what are you doing to help make sure we get money down to our community for CVI, for community violence intervention? And you don't have to do it alone. Again, you can talk with community justice. Community justice helped me. I'm a congressman. Community justice helped me find grants that I could use to help get money back for our CVI program too. So just make sure you're reaching out to organizations. You don't have to do this alone, but every city, every state should be doing this work, and it should be centralized. It's not enough for them to have a random grant program that goes to the boys and girls, or random clubs, and I love the Boys and Girls Club, but that goes to random clubs and different things like that. They need to centralize this and make sure that they're putting resources in the hands of the people on the ground doing the work. And that's how we're going to save lives over the course of the next 2 years. And electing Kamala Harris is essential in this. Again, we give her a Democratic House and Senate, we will pass the Break the Cycle Act. That's what we need to do next. Yeah. It's what we need to do next. And not just the Break the Cycle Act. We're going to pass legislation that will help end gun violence. Again, safe storage laws, so making sure we get universal background checks, banning assault weapons, all these things, we have to do it together at the same time. That's how we're going to end gun violence.
Well, thank you both so much for the knowledge that you have been sharing with us. We know that the gun violence prevention movement is incredibly personal, both to you all, and you both mentioned Florida and New York, so I have to mention Texas. If Texas is in the house, represent.
Yeah.
Love the cowboy hat. For me, I became aware of this movement or introduced to it because of the El Paso massacre that happened in 2019, where a gunman traveled to my community to kill 23 individuals because he wanted to stop the Hispanic invasion. And we know that rhetoric is dangerous. It is really espoused by the Republican Party, by Trump. It even went out in a fundraising email by Greg Abbott a couple days before that massacre. And so we definitely need leaders like Vice President Kamala Harris who understand our communities, who support our communities, who are not dehumanizing us, but rather empowering us. And so when I talk about empowering, really what I heard from this conversation is that you as an individual can do so much in this movement to really push at the local level for reform. There are amazing folks working at the state and federal level, like our Congressman, Maxwell Frost. And by electing Vice President Kamala Harris, we will be able to continue passing landmark gun reform legislation that will keep our Latino communities safe. So with all that being said, could you please give a round of applause to our panelists?
Thank you.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Great subject. Very close to my heart. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, we still have a little bit ways to go. First and foremost, I want to introduce the person that I have known for quite a long time. We went to General Assembly together. She is, for the first time, the very first Latina ever to be the chairman of the party, the Democratic Party of Illinois. After someone's leadership for over 30 years, she is our newest chair, and she's phenomenal. I love her. She was my partner in crime over in the House. I was in the Senate, and we did some great things together as caucus chairs. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my friend, my partner in crime, Lisa Hernandez.
Hola, ¿cómo están todos? Hello there. So, I have to tell you, Iris, yes, has been a first in breaking many historical, from being the first Latina senator, first in many ways, first Latina clerk, city clerk, it goes on, Cook County clerk. I mean, and I have to tell you, maybe most of you don't know, but she has a lot to contribute. She's been with the DNC 30 years. This is the person that you could go to, and she can get you places. I always go to her. Well, let me start by saying welcome to Chicago. We are really pleased and proud to host the 2024 Democratic National Convention. The November 5th election is like no other of our time. We have a lot in stake, and it can never be higher. We have a choice between two starkly different candidates for President of the United States. One, Donald Trump will say and do anything his quest for power and revenge. He puts himself above our Constitution, the electorate, and above democracy itself. Our true candidate, Kamala Harris, has proven she cares about all Americans. Vice President Harris will fight for working families and the values of our nation. That's a promise. The contrast could not be more clear. Donald Trump is not an existential threat to our democracy, and Vice President Kamala Harris will defend it. And at her side will be the next Vice President of the United States. Give it up for Tim Walz. He made it here. I'll tell you, I knew of Governor Walz, but wow, he really is a reflection of all of us here in the United States, whether it is, other than being just a down-to-earth man, he is a teacher, a union guy, a hunter, but a person that is really caring. So this week in Chicago, let's consider the hundreds of millions of people around the world who have no say in how their national, state, and local communities are governed. Some are denied the right to vote because of their gender. Other countries have on-paper democracies. Still others operate as one-party states. Let this week of DNC underscore that in a healthy democracy, voting is a fundamental right. This is our moment. The convention is a stage for uplifting the Democratic Party, igniting and preparing ourselves for getting out the vote on Election Day. We must make sure that we get everyone in our communities motivated and provide an opportunity for people to participate. That begins with voting. Free, open, and fair elections have been a hallmark of the United States of America for more than 200 years, with revisions along the way to right the wrongs of the past. We must continue to be vigilant about our voting rights, and we must be vigilant about exercising the right to vote. Historically, the Latino community in the United States has had a lower voter registration rate and turnout than others. In the 2020 general election, Latino turnout at the polls was among the very lowest of racial and ethnic groups. At the same time, the number of Latinos eligible to vote grew by millions of people. Even as the growth of the Latino population continues to outspace other groups, Latino turnout remains among the lowest. Why? Is it the lack of interest, discriminatory voting laws, a lack of civic engagement, fear or distrust of the system, particularly among those recent immigrants who qualify to vote? Apathy or a feeling of one's vote doesn't count. It may be any of these or all of these. Let's work together to eliminate fear and uncertainty about the voting process, because I'm telling you today, this is our moment. It is time for more people in the Latino community in every state throughout these United States to express individual rights and freedoms. I'm calling upon everyone in the Latino community who isn't registered to vote to do so now. Don't wait. And if you are registered, exercise your right, your civic obligation, and vote. And while you're at it, ask your neighbor if he or she needs a ride. Help a senior get to the polls. Encourage your people at least 18 years of age to register and participate in the process. Those who vote can and will make the difference in the outcome. This week at the DNC in Chicago, it is an opportunity to unify people across the nation. This is our moment. As for me, as a Latina with 2 daughters and granddaughters, I am doing everything possible to encourage the Latino community to engage in this election and vote. It's become very personal to me, and I know to many of you as well. This is our moment. It is a historic moment. And on top of that, we are ready to elect the first president, woman president of the United States of America. And I like the sound of Madam President. Again, welcome to Chicago and the Democratic National Convention. Let's make history on November 5th. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That's my fearless leader here, leading the party of Illinois, Democratic Party of Illinois. She's awesome. She rocks it. We're going down to our final little panel, and I know this is going to be very important because it has to do around communication and what we got to do to make sure that we get the message out. I'm going to bring Luis up, but I want to remind everyone here, tomorrow, for all of you that sign up for the Latino luncheon over at the Navy Pier, make sure that you show up. Please be patient as you go through registration. But tomorrow, it's going to be a fun-filled day of all the Latinos in one big room, enjoying a good luncheon, but talking to and hearing from some great, great individuals tomorrow. So I'm going to turn it over to Luis, who's going to bring in the last panel, and you're going to enjoy this panel because there is a fabulous woman who I just love that's going to share some great insight on media. But she is, I said she rocks it. She's the best I've ever seen out there doing the work that she does. I love her, but I'm going to let Luis introduce her. I'm just staring at her because I love her. Thank you so much for joining us in this last panel. Love you, girl.
Gracias, and we'll be quick. We have a great, I think, opportunity to listen for one of the best. Want to bring up to the stage Marca Casado. She is a bilingual journalist and communication expert. She leads as a spokesperson and Hispanic media director for the Harris for President campaign. Also with us, we have the one and only CNN commentator, Maria Cardona, who is with us today. And these folks don't need any introductions because they're wonderful at what they do, and thank you for sticking around. This is really, really worth the conversation that we learn how to talk to our families, talk to the people around us. Gracias.
Gracias. Thank you. Hola, mi gente. ¿Cómo están? Buenas tardes. Okay, it's just a few of us, so we're gonna do something like an informal conversation, something quick. You can hear me?
¿Está prendido?
¿Me oyen?
Ahora.
Sorry, okay. Bueno, thank you so much for joining us. It's just a few of us, so we're gonna do something kind of, like informal and quick, but we just wanna talk to you about how to talk about, Kamala Harris, the governor, and how, to get all Latino people involved in this movement.
I think that this is something that is not going to be difficult, but we have to make it intentional. And what I mean by that is that Kamala Harris is not new to our community. She comes from California, right? I mean, for God's sake, right? She understands the community. She's been fighting for the community from the moment she came onto the scene for public service as a prosecutor, as the DA, as the AG, as the senator, as the VP. So this is something that is part of her DNA. But I do think we have to be very intentional in making people understand that who she is, who she represents, is historic, and it also is going to help her become more connected and more relevant to Latinos across the country. For example, I try to talk about her in this historic sense because think about this. This is a woman who is a daughter of immigrants. She will be a first-generation black woman of Asian descent, daughter of immigrants, to ascend to the presidency of the United States.
One of us.
Yes, she's one of us. She understands what it's like to struggle, to come to this country with that vision of an optimistic future, to be able to give our kids, our families, a better life. That's why my family came from Colombia, to do exactly that. And so she has all along and will continue to talk about the policies to give our families the tools to live that better life.
And that piece of, like her being one of us, Kamala Harris is the incarnation of the American dream, like de que se puede. And she just wants to make sure that that American dream is available for our kids, like in front of the threat that Donald Trump, represents, especially to our Latino community, and that's extremely important, just to try to talk about like how is fighting for us, protecting us. That piece, like Kamala Harris working at McDonald's to pay her university, and she understands many of the struggles that we face every day, and that's why she's like fighting for us. There are other separate pieces that we can discuss a little about by the issues, Maria, but the main thing is like she is fighting for us, and the contrast piece is really important. I don't know. Okay.
Can we play the ad or no? Do we have time? Or no?
I think we play it like
later.
a bunch of, yeah, we'll play it like.
Okay.
Let's talk a little about like the binary choice,
Yes.
And how we have Kamala Harris that is fighting for us, that is one of us. She's fighting for our future, our democracy, to protect our rights, to protect dreamers. And on the other side, you have this guy that, besides being a convicted felon, he despises our community.
Yes. I think this is critical. And it is never enough to talk about everything that he says about our community. He thinks we poison the blood of this country. He's been very clear about that. He talks proudly about his mass deportation plans. He talks proudly about the mass deportation camps that he wants to implement through his Project 2025, which we should always talk about as well. He also speaks proudly about the family separation policy that he implemented in 2018, and he has said very clearly that he will implement it again. There was a New York Times piece a couple of days ago that talked about how he is salivating to win so he can militarize the army and our armed forces to go after migrants. I mean, it was very clear there in black and white what he wants to do and how he thinks about our community. You contrast that with somebody like the Vice President, who understands that we have not just been an asset to this country, but that our work has been critical in making sure that the United States economy is the strongest post-pandemic recovery in the world. And frankly, it's why so many people have wanted to come here after the pandemic, because our economy has been so strong. She understands that. She welcomes that, and she wants to give our community the tools to be able to continue to contribute in that massive way to the country.
And like, can we go to, this is like the accomplishments. Yeah, Maria discussed this a little, like 5 million jobs for Latinos. And can we go to the next one? In the other side, like Trump is presenting himself like this, like bright economic, mastermind. Everything that Trump touches die. The universities, the hotels in Atlantic City. Like, he hasn't had to work one day in his life. And, he has failed. Like, he had the worst economic, like the worst job records since the Great Depression. And that's a fact. You can fact check it. So it's a scam, like everything else around him, like that's really important to talk about the economic piece, and feel free to reach out to us, because this economic piece is really, really important, and we can provide you with some facts that are going to help you, just, that's a myth. And it's important to talk about it.
I think this is really important, Maca, because this is what Republicans are hanging their hat on. That, and frankly, there has been, frustratingly for us, a lot of amnesia right? In terms of what actually Donald Trump did in the 4 years that he was president. When he left office, it was the highest unemployment rate for Latinos. It was, millions of jobs had been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses, many Latino businesses, just, failed. Because this man was not able to deal with the pandemic. He ignored the science of the pandemic. Instead of getting people to get COVID shots, he told us to inject bleach. And now they're trying to tout that he is the one that knows how to run the economy. When he left office, the economy was in the toilet. We have to remind people of that. So to Maca's point, if you all are talking to your friends and neighbors and they say, oh, but I feel like, we had it so much better under Trump, don't be shy about reminding them what that actually meant for our community, for our country, for our families. The fact that, and this happened nationwide, not just in our community, when he imposed the family separation piece, literally ripping babies from the arms of their mothers, this is what made suburban women go, no effing way, that is not who we are. And that's why they lost power in 2018. That's why they lost in 2020. That's why they lost in 2022. This is not something that benefits them electorally, though Trump thinks it does. And so we need to continue to turn that around in our favor.
The last thing I'll discuss about the framing Trump piece is Donald Trump only cares about one thing. Donald Trump.
Yep.
And that's a reality. Kamala Harris fighting for us, one of us, and fighting for those things that like this economic platform, to make sure that Americans and that everyone in this country has a chance, to thrive, not just surviving. Right. I'm gonna talk super quick about something. We are doing an unprecedented work on the campaign. We are running the first bilingual campaign in American history. The vice president is being, a key messenger, a validator for our community. She's been doing all these interviews. She was with WAPA, which is Puerto Rican TV. Of course, she did Univision and Telemundo, but she also did local radio in Pennsylvania, talking to the Boricua community, or local radio in Arizona. The vice president, she understands that she's a powerful voice for our community, and she's very, very engaged and involved. She's been going to all these states, is being a powerful voice, also participating. She understands that reproductive rights, for example, is a very important issue for our community. And she's been having, the Latino piece is being a key piece of this, reproductive rights tour. Can we go to the next one? Thank you. And the last thing, that enthusiasm that we're seeing, that momentum that we're seeing, those calls, I'm sure many of you have heard of them. We have thousands of people joining these organic calls just to support our campaign. We are trying to, convert that enthusiasm in action. Get involved. Join the campaign. Help us. We need you to knock doors. We need you to make phone calls. If we fight, we win, but we need to fight. We need you to fight with us.
I have a couple of other quick policy issues that I think are really important, because you will be hearing this from Republicans as well. They're going to try to hammer her on immigration. They're going to try to hammer her on the border. They're going to try to paint her as the borders are. What I have loved is that that's not sticking, because it's not true. She was never the borders are. So any pushback that you all need to make, you can say absolutely positively she was never the borders are.
That's not a thing.
Exactly. That's not a thing. And a couple of other things. She and President Biden are actually the only ones who have implemented solutions to the immigration issue. The balanced approach, the common sense solutions-based that they have been trying to offer is because Republicans have refused to try to find a solution to this. And in fact, hypocritically, they were on the verge, as you all know, of passing a very strong border security bill. Some of it was, even our own people didn't like it because it was too strong on security, and they turned their back on it because Donald Trump said, you know what? I need to weaponize this issue in order to win in the elections. So we need to use that. Whenever they come after her on immigration, say, no, no, no. You guys do not have a leg to stand on. You don't want to have any kind of solution on this. You don't care about border security, because if you did, you would have passed this bill. It's President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, and now Kamala Harris with Tim Walz at her side are the ones that are focused on solutions. And what are those solutions? Strong border security, yes, always. We all want that. Our community wants that as well. Also, increased legal pathways for people to be able to stay here. And you saw that in the 2 presidential actions that they took. So that is the balanced approach that she is for. She will continue to talk about that. And so they do not have a leg to stand on. And I love that she's leaning into this, because she is not letting them paint her, as anything and
At
only
the
what the reality
at
is.
the
right.
offensive,
Exactly.
we're not going to shy
She's
away.
on offense, which is fantastic.
Offense.
And then the other kind of thing that I just wanted to mention is we're seeing the movement in the polls. Hispanic Federation just released a poll this morning that has Vice President Harris up by 24 points with Latinos. She is getting into the 60% range, which is where we need to be. But to Maca's point, and all of what we need you all to do, it's not enough. I think she can get into the 70s. I think she can get into the 70s easily, as long as we all focus on and are committed to making sure that our people know the message that she is the one that's fighting for us. Donald Trump is only in this to fight for himself, a 34 times convicted felon. He does not want to go to prison, and that's the only reason why he's doing this.
We will see the vice president, after the convention. We're going to celebrate her. This is a historic moment, but we have 70 days to do a lot. We don't have time enough. These are very young campaign, but, it needs to mature pretty fast, So we're going to see her traveling to the key states that are going to decide this election. As Maria said, we are seeing the enthusiasm in the polling, but the campaign, we don't take anything for granted. Nothing. We understand that this is going to be a very close race, that it's going to be a very close election, that is going to be win by a few votes in a few states. So we are not taking anything for granted. We are doing the work. We're going to see Kamala Harris going to Arizona, to Nevada, to Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. She's going to travel around the country. She's going to keep visiting those Latino small businesses. She loves Latino small businesses. She loves small businesses. So we'll see her, traveling around the country, spreading the message, and presenting, the governor, Tim Walz. There's a little, a few data on how many trips she's done. We'll see her doing interviews as well, for sure. And we go to the next one. The issues about Latinos, well, gun violence is key for our community, reproductive rights. People, they tend to think that immigration is the issue. Is one of the issues.
One of the issues, right.
But
That's
Latinos,
exactly right.
we care about the same things that everyone does. Economy is our first priority. Gun safety, reproductive rights, healthcare is a key one. So, when they're talking about immigration, you can also take them to the other issues,
Exactly. That's exactly right. And then the other quick thing I wanted to say is when you see her traveling to, obviously, Arizona, Nevada, are states where there's massive Latino populations, the connection will be obvious. But even in states like Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, the number of eligible Latino voters is vastly bigger than the margin with which President Biden won the race in 2020. What does that mean? That means that we, our people in those states, can decide this election. But it is up to us to make sure that they understand that they have that power. And the only way that we can maximize that power is to make sure if they are eligible to vote, that they register, and then if they are registered, that they actually come out to vote, to get their familias to do it, to get their friends to do it, to get their abuelos, abuelas, tías, tíos, primos, everyone to make sure to come out to vote. They can decide this election, and they can make sure that in November, we are going to be celebrating a future that is worthy of the reason why all of us came to this country. I thought that we had the WhatsApp thing, the QR code. It's okay. We should.
There's
We'll send
somewhere.
it out.
Yeah, we'll send it out. So,
Oh, there it is.
perfect.
Yay.
So we are meeting Latino voters where they are. Literally, we launched our WhatsApp channel today. Join us. Share this with your family. This is going to be a tool for many things for our campaign to make community with Latinos. But also, this information, it's one of the things that is really, targeting our community. One of the goals of this channel is, to keep the community informed. Please join us. Ask your tíos, abuelas, primos, a todos que se nos unan al canal de WhatsApp. And let's do this together. Anything else?
Woohoo! No, that's it. A ganar en noviembre.
Eso.
Gracias.
Thank you guys for sticking around. Please, 9:30 next on Wednesday. I do want to make an announcement. Miki Ibarra is hosting a luncheon tomorrow. Eddie, do we have Eddie? Oh, there is a luncheon for Latinos that will send around some information. The Miki Ibarra reception.
Yeah, it's going to be tomorrow at 11 a.m. at the Navy Pier.
Tomorrow at 11 a.m. at the Navy Pier. It is a luncheon hosted by Miki Ibarra, and folks are invited. Mm-hmm.